Good morning. Good afternoon, rather. Let's see, May 16, roughly. I have a strange issue with a small pair of my favorite speakers, Cambridge Audio S30s, I believe these are. And I detected a vibration of sorts, bit of distortion, if you will, but I believe that was a cabinet issue. So I decided it seemed to be coming from the woofer area. This is a small two-way speaker, about, I don't know, 12 inches high. And the woofer is, well, this is the woofer right here. It's got a phase plug. It's a well-made woofer with a, some kind of a Kevlar-looking cone and rubber surround, and but not really well sealed on this outer panel. So what I'm going to try to do is put a bit of a gasket in there to see if I can't minimize some of this vibration. So one thing that I noticed when I pulled the woofer out was that the screws that had been used went completely through to the other side and broke through on the inside of the cabinet on all four screws. So I also started thinking that it's possible that some of this broken wood, on the other side, may have been flopping around and creating that particular vibration also. So what I wanted to do was sort of treat the backside of all these screw holes with a little bit of glue. So I used some Elmer's, trusty old Elmer's Carpenter's wood glue, and I couldn't quite figure out how to get it to stay where I wanted. So what I did is I put a drop behind here, and then I just put a piece of painter's tape around, down on that glue dot. And what I'm hoping is that when that tape sort of affixes, it'll flatten those wooden pieces out and sort of coat it with a covering of glue to give it a little bit more of a brace and harden those areas up. So when I do screw the woofer back down, there'll be a little bit more of substance behind those screw holes, and hopefully will tighten down on any vibrations that I'm having. So that's the little trick that I'm going to try. Hopefully it works. I'll keep you posted on that. But the speakers themselves sound quite fantastic, and so I've been able to work on these a little bit to get them right where I want them. But the one thing that did intrigue me about these speakers is that these dual inputs. So what you have is an option for bi-wiring these speakers, which means depending on how your cables are, you're going to get a separate lead for your tweeter and a separate lead for your woofer. So what that does is sort of gives a little bit more substance from your wires to go directly to each driver. So rather than sort of combining everything, they've split these so that you could actually run a different pair of speaker wires if you wanted to your tweeters versus your woofers. So I thought that was an interesting idea to try out. I think it does help a little bit. Hard to say. It's one of those things that's pretty tough to measure, but hey, I like the idea behind it. So with the vibrations, when those occur, you have to sort of try to find places where things might rattle. And so all of these types of fittings, these are sunk into the cabinet, countersunk, if you will. And I'm not sure if there's a gasket behind here or not, but first thing to try is always tighten up your screws and make sure those are nice and tight. And if you have any particular rattles coming from this area, just double check that these are nice and tight. Your terminal screws and things like that. Now, the pair of speaker wires that I had coming out of here, sort of, these are angled up a bit. So I had sort of a large set of speaker wires that were in a shotgun formation, they call it. And so what that means is that on your amp end, you've got two wires. They used Canary four. I forget the denomination, but one of Canary's four lead wires, which is a well-made cable. And in the shotgun formation, you on your amp side, you wind two pairs together for your left and two pairs together for your right, or positive and negative. And so, and then on this end, you leave those four separate. So it's a 2 to a 4 on the speaker wires themselves. And if I wanted to pull those out from underneath, I could show you. But that's what they call the shotgun formation. So anyway, I don't think there's any rattles coming from back here. The cabinet is pretty well damped. So I'm going to hope that this little trick that I've got on the front panel is going to quiet that woofer down, because if you're kind of a picky fanatic like me, sometimes you'll notice that there's a certain frequency that sort of starts to distort. And sometimes it's just a rattle coming from the enclosure itself, because there's quite a bit of vibration, as you know, that goes on in these types of situations with that woofer. And this is a port here. And so a lot of times you may even get, depending on how your port is made, this seems to be a pretty solid plastic with some sort of a rubber bumper on the inside. So it seems very well damped. I've seen ports that were much less serious than this, that were made from something that looked like a toilet paper roll, So, in those cases, I'm not surprised when things tend to rattle. But knowing where and how to damp some of these cabinet resonances, if you will help to sort of fine tune your speakers. And so, if I have any more problems, what I might even consider doing is throwing just a little bit of extra acoustic stuff. A little bit more fiber fill. There's a couple of, it's what cheap pillows are made of, inside. And I would just tuck some of that in there in strategic places, and hopefully, try to do the same thing on both speakers, because anything that you do to one, you may actually hear a difference if you don't do it with both speakers. So anyway, those are just some little tweaks, to try to make sure that your speakers are operating at their fullest. And if you happen to hear anything that's, I happen to hear that particular problem or that little rattle on a particular piano note, seemed to be somewhere around high C, where almost every song that had that particular piano resonance to it would give a bit of a vibration here. So that started driving me crazy. The first thing you think is that could be one of your drivers. And I know that's not the case on the tweeters, because I just got these brand spanking new ones here. And so I'm pretty sure that that's not the culprit. So I'm going to hope that what we do is some impact on the sound of these speakers, and that I can report back, in fact, that the little bit of glue that I added here, maybe a little bit of extra damping. A lot of times I like to use rope caulk, which is more tight around the drivers, to just give a good seal. It's easy to work with. It comes out in a maybe a quarter of an inch or eighth of an inch, wide, pliable string type of, almost like putty or clay. so that's easily moldable, and I can run a bead around that woofer uh, hole there, and I think that will help solve any issues. So we'll try that first, and if that doesn't work, then I will go to plan B and get a little bit more aggressive, possibly with taking these out and seeing if it could be something like the crossover, which is mounted inside on the back panel. I'm not sure if you can see it here or not. No, not very well, but back in the far reaches of this um, cabinet, there is a crossover mounted to that back panel, and so you've got a chance for things to rattle there. A lot of times they'll use hot glue, and they'll use that to stick down the capacitors or the choke that they use for the crossover parts. And so sometimes things do rattle free and whatnot. So don't be afraid to pop out the woofer. That's usually your best chance of ingress to these types of things, to be able to get at the internals, to give it a little bit more room, pull that woofer right out, and take a look. And maybe a few taps on your cabinet will give you a sign as to where any vibrations are coming from. Tighten up any screws, but don't over tighten, and hopefully that will solve any of those types of issues. And I appreciate watching today, and thank you for tuning in to Hobby Hi-Fi. And I appreciate the new subscribers that have joined in the last couple of weeks. So I appreciate that, and look forward to giving you more content soon. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.